So this evening we have a 2009 Pontiac Vibe. It was towed here because apparently it died on them while they were driving it. At least the radio shut off, they lost the power steering, battery warning light on the dash was on, and when they shut it off and attempted to restart it, it wouldn't start. It was like the battery was dead. So they had it towed here. So it's been sitting several hours outside, and of course now it runs. Now I see the battery warning light comes on with the key. It starts and runs. Battery warning light went off. We have a whole bunch of warning lights: check engine, ABS, traction control, brake warning light on, all-wheel drive warning light on, VSC off, message blinking. So we're going to scan it and see what codes it's got. Sounds like there's a noise in it. Let's have a listen. So this vehicle has been in here before. I've scanned it before. I know it has a problem with the rear speed sensor. It should be in history. There it is. So it doesn't support a network scan? Really? Are you kidding me? Alright. I was sure this thing supported a network scan. Well, you're going to see why it's so painfully slow to go through this. Evap control system incorrect purge flow. Gross leak. Very small leak. Interesting. Well, that's not related. Let's see about history codes. Same codes. Still can't believe this vehicle doesn't support a network scan. I'm sure it does, just the Snap-on scanner doesn't support it. Let's see what the ABS has to... It has VSC. An engine control system fault. Too low or too high battery voltage and a left rear wheel speed sensor fault. Well, I know the left rear speed sensor is a failed sensor. That was here. That was there before. And electric power steering. If it stopped working, there should be a code for that. Probably low voltage. I don't think there'd be any current codes, but there may be a history code for battery voltage. I suspect the charging system is failing. Lost communication with the ECM PCMA. That's not what I was expecting to see. I wonder if this has got a computer-controlled charging system. Let's try body control. See if there's any voltage codes in there. Nothing current. History. Nothing in history. Okay, so this is not giving us any detail, but there is a humming noise coming from the engine. I'm going to try and isolate where that's coming from. Let's look at the engine controls right now and see what the system voltage is running at right now, according to the scan tool. One of these should be, oh there it is, well that's ignition advance, fuel pump speed, fan motor, engine run time, 5 minutes, 3 codes. One of these data lists has to have system voltage in it. Well, that one certainly doesn't. How about under monitor data? Oh, this is the Mode 6 test results by the looks of it. That's not what we want either. I'll look around, see if I can't find it. Well, there we have it. turn this so I can see it a little bit here, down here at the bottom. 10.5 volts right now. Yet the battery warning light was off a few minutes ago. I wonder if it's on now. Well, that's interesting. It's not on right now. It should be over here in this spot right over here. So we'll check the charging system voltage with a multimeter. Well, it's definitely not charging. So is it a control circuit problem, or is it a bad rectifier or something on this alternator? It's going down, it's only 10 volts now. Well, before it actually dies here, let's have a look at the alternator waveform. Well, that's special. Definitely has a bad rectifier in the alternator. So we're going to order up an alternator for this thing. So we have a new alternator here. Came from Napa. Part number 2139698. And I got a helper here who's going to help me install it. These alternators have a one-way clutch on them, so that's one of the things that can cause an alternator to fail and should be checked. Now, normally I would check the control circuits to this alternator. I'm sure the indicator lamp control circuit is working because it lights up, but considering the waveform that I had from the diode ripple showing a bad shorted or open rectifier bridge, I don't think I'm going to bother checking the control circuits. I'm just going to change the alternator. But we are going to check the drive belt and the other pulleys as well once it's off. So disconnect the vehicle negative battery post. You notice I've got the positive one disconnected because I'm going to clean them both while I have them off. Should always disconnect the negative post first and connect it last. This connector at the alternator is released by squeezing these two ears on either side of it and pulling up on it. Pop this plastic cap off, the cover off of the battery cable, and use a 10 mil socket to take the nut off. Hold the cable so that the nut doesn't try to turn, especially if you were trying to save this alternator, because a lot of times this stud will spin in there if you're not careful, and it'll break the bolt or the insulator on the back of the alternator, and you'll have to change the alternator if you weren't taking it off for that reason. So a challenge is getting at this serpentine belt tensioner adjuster. It's right underneath the motor mount. You can't get in there with anything, at least I couldn't. And so I took the motor mount off, took the overflow canister out. One of the bolts broke off in the fender here, so I'll have to fish that out from underneath. Two 18mm bolts at the top, or one bolt and one nut, and a 14mm headed bolt from the bottom that you have to get from underneath the vehicle. Then this mount, of course, supports the front of the engine, so you have to put a jack or a block of wood underneath the engine, otherwise it'll fall down. I've got it on the hoist and positioned at the ride height. So I'm going to actually take this bracket off because it's going to give me a little bit more room to get at the alternator fastener and the tensioner. There's only 3 more bolts there, so why not? So once that motor mount is out of the way, you can use a serpentine belt tool or an 18mm box end wrench, double offset, or a socket, an extension, and a power bar to loosen off the tensioner. You have to pull it forward and then slip the belt off of the water pump pulley, which is this pulley down here, and just tuck it off to the back. Remove this 14mm headed bolt and then the 12mm headed bolt down below, and the alternator is basically ready to come off. There is one little bracket on the side here with a little brace, a little shield, so we're going to have to fish that out of there as well. So the alternator comes out by turning it so the pulley is up and rotating in just the right spot. You can push this AC hose just enough out of the way to get it up through here. It probably helped to have that bracket removed because there's a little brace that holds this. I think that's a crank sensor wire connector. Now you want to clean up all these electrical terminals so that when they go back on, they're ensure a good clean connection. And while you're here, check the water pump for roughness. It feels pretty good. No play in the bearings. So, and as well as check the other idler pulleys to see if there's any roughness in them. I've already done that and they seem fine. So there's the alternator charging now at 13.5. Let's see what the diode ripple looks like now. The alternator is working pretty hard because the battery is low. That's much better. It's a more normal looking diode ripple. fluctuating about 40-50 millivolts. I did have the battery on trickle charger last night. I'm going to let it run for a while. I'm going to clear the codes out of the PCM now. But you can hear the alternator whining because it's working hard to recover this poor battery. I've cleaned the battery cables and connections. And should be good to go. Thanks for watching.